Hey everybody, it's Emily at ARG Schooling, and today we're going to be doing a rather large book haul. This isn't larger than anything I've done before. It's 2 months worth of book purchases. I think I have like almost 30 books here to talk about today, so I'm going to try to keep this relatively brief because while I'm feeling better, my voice is still, I start coughing if I talk too much. So I think I can do this though. Kind of divided like I usually do. I've divided this into categories. So I have my Nightworms subscription books for January and February. I have my middle grade and YA stack, and then I have like everything else. So let's go ahead and jump in. I think I'm going to start with the middle grade. So I have several middle grade. I bought a lot of middle grade this past 2 months. I think I have 2 YA in this stack. Let's start with The Mona Lisa Vanishes by Nicholas Day. I bought this specifically because this is the group read for middle grade March, and I was intrigued that it's a nonfiction and that this had like really high reviews. I think this even won the Sybils for elementary nonfiction. So I was very interested in reading this anyway. So when I saw it was their group pick, I immediately bought it because now I have to read it. So I decided I would do this as a read aloud this month with my daughter Regina. So this is a book about a heist to steal the Mona Lisa. So there's a lot going on in here. Like, we've only read the first little bit, but it kicks off talking about like, what is the Mona Lisa? Who painted it? Why is it important? And then it goes into like the beginnings of like what happened with the heist. I'm fascinated already. I'm very excited to read this with Regina. I think it's going to be a good time. So it says it's written at the pace of a thriller and shot through with stories of crime and celebrity, genius and beauty. Here is a propulsive, twisting work of narrative nonfiction from an electrifying new voice in middle grade. So that's just... You don't see things like this that often in middle grade, so like I'm really excited about reading this. In my quest to just like pick up every random book that comes across my feed or anything, I bought Light Comes to Shadow Mountain by Tony Buzeo. I don't even know where I heard about this, but I saw this cover and was immediately like, I want to know more about this book. So this is a historical fiction set in Appalachia in, I don't know when. When is this set? It's about like electricity coming to their village or their town in rural eastern Kentucky. But I don't know when this is set. But I know it's historical, and like, this cover is just stunning. I don't know. That just like spoke so much to me. So I don't know what this is exactly, but I was intrigued by the cover, that it's historical, that it's about like what happens when they're able to get electricity and like get more information from the outside world, like into their tiny community. So I think this could be potentially a lit bite. I don't know yet. I need to read it first, but like I'm intrigued. Another quest is to find as many of those like books that have been adapted for young readers, because while I don't always enjoy like when books are abridged, I do really enjoy when books that are like really interesting, fascinating pieces of work are made into something that a younger audience can easily digest, which is not the same thing as being abridged, but I guess it kind of is. But anyway, I've really enjoyed several of the like for young readers books that I've read. So when I saw this was available, I immediately bought it. This is A Mighty Long Way, My Journey to Justice at Little Rock Central High School by Carlotta Walls Lanier, and it's adapted for young readers. Things like this are just important books that I'm excited have been adapted for a younger audience. So yeah, I bought this. I don't know what I'm doing with it. I just wanted to have it. So probably I'm going to read it with my daughter at some point, or she's going to read it at some point. But besides that, I don't know. I've already talked about this book in my video where I discussed book releases coming out this year. I think I talked about this twice. I talked about it in my new releases video, but I also talked about it in my specifically middle grade new releases. And this is A Meal and the After by Vera Hiranandani. I'm hoping to squeeze this in this month. I don't know if that's realistic or not. I have a really ridiculous TBR as it is, but I really loved The Night Diary by this author, and this is a companion book. This is a story about Emil, who is both Muslim and Hindu, and his experiences living during the partitioning and like what that was like for him. And it says at the turn of the new year 1948, Emil and his family have started over in Bombay and are once again trying to rebuild their lives in an independent India. So that's the setting of the story, and I'm just really looking forward to reading this. I picked up Under the Doan Tree by Gila Almagor, and this is translated by Hillel Schenker, and it is a National Jewish Book Awards winner. This is a story about a group of young teens growing up in the newly founded Israel, and I think all of the teens in this story are Holocaust survivors. So it's sort of like them grappling with what has happened to them now that they're in a safe place. Like, what do they do with their lives? How can they move on? Which is something that I just find intriguing. I've never heard of this before. Somebody, Yiddish Kidlet is a person I follow on Instagram, and she reviewed this. And her review had me so intrigued that I immediately bought a copy. So I'm hoping to, there are so many books I want to read this month. And I would love to squeeze this in as well. Will I? I don't know. Soon, though. I really want to get to this soon. I have already read Across So Many Seas by Ruth Behar, and I really enjoyed this. This is a story that I've also talked about in the same videos as A Meal and the After, because this book is just so unique in that we are covering such a huge swath of time. This story follows Sephardic Jews, and it starts in Spain in 1492 when the Jews are expelled from Spain, and we're following one particular character as she and her family flee Spain and go to Turkey, where they are being accepted. So they arrive in Turkey, and then we jump forward in time to that character's, I almost said ancestors. They're not her ancestors. The characters are her ancestor. And so we jump forward in time to Turkey in the 1930s when they're getting their independence. And we follow a character whose family sends her to Cuba. And then we follow that character's daughter in Cuba during the 1960s, and then that character's daughter in the 2000s in Miami. So we're following this family line through history, and it was just really well done. I mean, honestly, I wish this could have been longer, and we could have had more time with each character, but for what it is, for being middle grade, I thought it was fascinating and really well done. And I really enjoyed this story, so I recommend it. This is, I think, maybe the only YA I bought this month. This is A Suffragist's Guide to the Antarctic by Yi Shun Lai. And honestly, this was a title buy. I saw the name of this book and immediately wanted to know more. And then I just thought, I'm just going to buy it. I want to own this. I have a feeling I'm going to love it. This is a story about a young girl who manages to get on board a ship that is traveling to Antarctica. And this is in 1914. And she documents her experiences. It says, "Hello, I'm Clara Ketterling Dunbar, and I am one of the 28 crew members of the Resolute. Rest her mast and timbers. I'm writing from a for now warmish tent sat on a large ice floe roughly 100 miles from the shore of the Antarctic continent itself. I am American. I am 18, although I have told the crew I am 21. Of the crew, only the boss and one other know of my origins. Everyone else believes me to be Canadian. The sentiment toward Americans is not the most favorable, shall we say, not since the war broke out, and probably most importantly, no one knows much of my activities in England before we embarked on this accursed expedition. So she's a suffragist and has been spending time in England, gets on this ship, and it's like her story about being on board this vessel and like what happens there. I don't know, I'm intrigued. Another book I've already read is The Songbird and the Rambutan Tree by Lucille Abendanon, and I loved this book. I loved it so much that after I read the ARC, I had the e-ARC from NetGalley, I immediately bought a copy of the physical book because I needed to own it. I wanted it on my shelves. This is a story set during World War II, and we are following a character who lives in Indonesia. At that time it was the Dutch East Indies, and she lives in the city of Batavia. She is European, but she's always lived in Batavia. Like, she doesn't know any other place. This is her home. And the war is coming, and a lot of the Europeans are trying to get out. Her father wants them to leave, but she refuses to go, and they end up stuck in Batavia, and she ends up being separated from her father and put into a Japanese concentration camp. And the story is all about, like, her survival. This is a true story based on the author's grandmother, and I just thought it was absolutely riveting. I've never read anything set in this place in that time, and so I was really intrigued by that, and just like the main character's heroism and like the way she changes over the course of the story, from being a kind of selfish girl to kind of starting to understand like why things have been the way they are, why so many of the people who are like native to this place didn't like the Europeans and maybe wanted to side with the Japanese. And so like it was just a really interesting story, and I really enjoyed it. And then the last middle grade book I have is very shiny. This is The Partition Project by Sadia Faruqi. And this is a story about a character learning about her family's history, which is something I always enjoy. This is a book about a, I think, young Pakistani girl living in America, and she starts talking to her grandmother about her experiences during the partition and learning her family history about that. And I always love that in a story, like, especially in middle grade, but like in any book, if you give me a story about a character digging into her family history, I'm riveted. So I'm looking forward to reading this. Okay, let's jump into my Nightworms. I have mixed these up, I think, and I'm not sure, but I think I have this right. I'm pretty sure that this January books, let's see. So the January theme was Lost Souls, and we received Where the Dead Wait. This is by Allie Wilkes, which just looks like such a great wintry read, doesn't it? Like that cover. I have no idea what this is about, though. It's set in the 1800s. Ooh, it's historical horror, which is something I always like. Okay, so this is set in the 1800s, and it says there are many ways to be lost in the Arctic. There are fewer ways to be found, but a disgraced sea captain must search for a missing shipmate and his own redemption amidst icy threats from within and without. In Bram Stoker Award-nominated author Allie Wilkes' chilling polar gothic novel. Polar gothic novel. I don't think I've ever read anything like that, so I'm on board. Like I'm interested. I don't generally like reading a ton of polar things because I don't like being cold, but I feel like this would be a great book to read, like snuggled under a blanket with some hot tea. Also in that package, we received The Wood Witch by Stephen Gregory, and it has a new introduction written by Paul Tremblay. Intriguing. I don't know what this is either, but I love this cover. Like how just like foggy and creepy that looks. I love it. It says, something was dead in the forest. Andrew Pinkney is a young English solicitor's clerk with boyish good looks and a gentle manner. But he also has a dark side. When his girlfriend Jennifer laughs at his impotence, he lashes out in a violent rage, knocking her unconscious. At the suggestion of his employer, Andrew heads to an isolated cottage in the gloomy Welsh countryside to take a break and get a grip on himself, and in the woods he discovers the grotesque stinkhorn mushroom, whose phallic shape seems to rise in obscene mockery of his own shortcomings. But the stinkhorn gives him an idea, a way to win Jennifer back. As the seeds of obsession take root in Andrew's mind, he embarks on a nightmarish quest with unexpected and horrifying results. This has so many things going for it that I'm like, that could be something. I love stories set in the woods. I love the mushrooms. Like, what is it about creepy mushrooms that has been like a thing lately? Have you noticed this? How many books have I read or seen that have had like weird mushroom horror? Interesting. Okay, and then February's theme was human contact. And we have The Bedmakers by Chad Lutzke and John Bowden. I don't know what this is. It just says, after two elderly men tire of their homelessness in downtown Chicago in 1979, they hop a train in search of work out west. But before their last stop, a traumatic event in an empty train car steers their once hopeful journey into a path of chaos filled with deceit, murder, grave robbing, and dormant secrets. This could be something. It sounds interesting. I like the grave robbing aspect. I don't know. I enjoy that. And then I have All the Fiends of Hell by Adam L.G. Neville, which has a very creepy cover. And this just says, the Red Knight of Bells heralds global catastrophe, annihilation on a biblical scale. Seeing the morning is no blessing. The handful of scattered survivors are confronted by blood-red skies and an infestation of predatory horrors that never originated on Earth, an occupying force intent on erasing the remnants of animal life from the planet. Okay, so I guess this is sort of an alien horror. An alien invasion, apocalyptic horror, which I do like apocalyptic horror, so that's exciting. Now let's get to my everything else pile. These are just things that I bought for myself, just to have. First up, I have 52 Ways to Walk by Annabelle Abs Streets, and I bought this as sort of a read over the course of a year situation because this is divided up into 52 weeks, and it's just inspiration for me to get out and walk. I have been failing hard at my daily walks thing because February was just a mess. It was either terrible weather or I was sick, and so it just kind of didn't happen. I think I took like 2 walks in the entire month of February. So I'm hoping now that I'm no longer ill, I can hopefully pick this back up again. We'll see. But I have enjoyed reading the different ideas and like the science behind why certain things are good for you and why walking is so much more than just basic exercise. So I'm enjoying this. One of my favorite books I read last month was Nestlings by Nat Cassidy, so I immediately went out and bought his other book. This is Mary, An Awakening of Terror by Nat Cassidy. I really don't know anything about this. I just really loved his other book and wanted to read this one as well. It says it blends Midsommar with elements of American Psycho and a pinch of I'll Be Gone in the Dark. Okay. I think we're following somebody who is going to become unhinged and start murdering people. I'm always down for reading about unhinged women. So I'm hoping that I love this just as much as I love Nestlings. I purchased Termouche, a novel by Sven Holm. I learned about this from Tanya at Project Happy Home. We've been kind of going back and forth exchanging books that could potentially work as book club titles that we read this year. And this was one of the ones that she recommended to me as a possible book to read. And I was so intrigued by the premise that I immediately bought a copy. I didn't realize, however, that it's so short, which is not a bad thing. Like I'm all down for reading a novella for a book club because like we all need a short book once in a while. But this is a story about some kind of a disaster happening to the world and people kind of holding up in this place where everything is perfect. It's a seaside resort called Termouche. A select group of guests continue to live their lives undisturbed by what is happening outside for now. As time passes, signs of the cataclysm begin to bleed into their gilded idol. Before long, their peaceful days have turned into an agonizing wait for everything to fall apart. I love stories about like apocalyptic things happening and like people finding ways to survive it. And I think this in particular could be really interesting to read about, like people who are living in just oblivious to what's happening outside because their money affords them the ability to do that until it doesn't, which is something that I think could be really interesting. So this is potentially going to be a book club pick later in the year, but I think it could be really interesting to read together. I have the newest in the Wayward Children's book. I'm hopefully going to get to this year because I'm trying to catch myself up. This one is Mislaid in Parts Half Known. All I know is it's dinosaurs. I don't even know what character or anything because I am behind. I think at this point I'm 3 books back, so I need to read Where the Drowned Girls Go, I think this month, and then I have like the last year's book and then this one. So hopefully I can make that happen. I bought Isabel Allende's Inez of My Soul. I originally had this in my level 11 stack and then I started it and changed my mind. I didn't feel like this was the right book for that, but I do want to go back and try reading it again. I like only got it, I think 2 chapters in. I don't know. I didn't get very far, but I'm tabbing this for something I'm going to be working on later in the year. Another project I had in mind for it, so I'm going to come back to it later. But this is a story about a woman born in poverty in Spain and how she finds herself going to the Americas and her experiences with the conquistadors there and like what that was like for her. So she's delving into this period of history that I feel like we don't read. There's not enough books about like very specific experiences there. Like I've read books that are more written by white people about those events. And this is written by a Peruvian woman, so I feel like it might be a little more authentic to the time and place, you know? Then I have The Map of Salt and Stars by Zane Jokadar, I think is how you say that name. And I bought this with something in mind and then I ended up using something else for that, but that's okay because I still want to read this. This is a story about just 2 unforgettable heroines come of age in perilous times. So we're following 2 different timelines in this book. We're following a woman in America who is an immigrant from Syria. All right, so in the summer of 2011, just after Noor loses her father to cancer, her mother moves Noor and her sisters from New York City back to Syria to be closer to their family. In order to keep her father's spirit alive, Noor tells herself their favorite story, the tale of Rawia, a 12th century girl who disguised herself as a boy in order to apprentice herself to a famous map maker. We have several of my favorite things happening here. We have a character going back to their country of origin that they've never been to before. So they're getting to go be exposed to their culture firsthand for the first time, which I think is always interesting to read about. We're also getting a like side story. I don't know if it's a side story or if we're really getting dual timelines about a character in history who is dressing as a boy to be like able to go, like I love that. So I'm hoping I end up loving this book. I have The Boy with the Star Tattoo by Talia Carner. I bought this because I saw it was getting review bombed on Goodreads, and I hate that. I hate when people go out of their way to give a negative review to a book they've never read based on hearsay. So, like, I immediately wanted to purchase this book so I could read and review it. So I'm hoping to do that soon. This is a story set in 2 timelines again. So we're following characters in 1942 and we're following characters in 1968 and 69. And it says this is a story This is a epic historical novel of ingenuity and courage, of love and loss, spanning post-war France when Israeli agents roamed the countryside to rescue hidden Jewish orphans, to the 1969 daring escape of the Israeli boats of Cherbourg. So we're following like two different timelines of people being like rescued and saved. I think we're starting out with like them rescuing the children who were orphaned after the war. So many children had been sent into hiding to live with other families during the war. And then after the war, the parents have been killed. And so these children have nowhere to go. And so Israel was able to send people to rescue these children and bring them there so that they can be adopted and have a place to live, or maybe even find other family members who have made it there. And then the 1968 story was a secret naval operation in Cherbourg, France. So I don't really know too much more about what that part of the story is about. I'm really intrigued though about the 48 storyline, but I'm hoping to get to this soon because like I want to write a review. I have 50 Beasts to Break Your Heart and Other Stories by Jenna Rose Nethercott. Thistlefoot was one of my favorite books last year, so when I saw she had a new book coming out, I immediately pre-ordered it. And this is a short story collection. I don't really know anything about it, but I'm hoping to get this read this year, ideally. And it looks like it's like a mix of short stories and poetry. Maybe. And some of these stories are like really short. So, it literally looks like it is like a section called 50 Beasts to Break Your Heart. There's illustrations for each of the beasts. So, it looks really cute. As well as some other stories. So, I'm excited to read that. I've already read these last two books. I have When the Reckoning Comes by LaTanya McQueen. I had borrowed this from Libby. I was listening to the audio, and I got like a chapter in and stopped, and it was like, no, I need to own this. I immediately purchased a copy because I wanted to read the physical book along with the audio to get the most out of it because it was beautiful. Like the writing is so good. Like, this is a story about a haunted plantation in the South, and like we meet our main character who is coming back into town where she grew up to go to a wedding for one of her oldest best friends. And her best friend is white, and she's getting married on a plantation. It's a plantation wedding, and she has uncomfortable feelings about it, but she's decided to go because she's hoping to see another one of her best friends there and like get back together with him because she hasn't seen him in a really long time. And they were both really interested in this plantation growing up, and they had some weird experiences there. And so it goes from there. I don't want to share more than that. This is a really like dark, haunted plantation story, and like it's disturbing but done really well. And I thoroughly enjoyed my time reading this book. I gave it 5 stars. I loved this. And I definitely want to read more by this author. And then the last book I have in my haul is one I read last month as well. And this is Several People Are Typing by Calvin Kosulki. And this was one of my 12 recommendations from 12 Friends books. And I'm so glad that I bought a physical copy because this would have been weird to listen to as an audio. But the whole book is written in like Slack texts. So like literally the whole book is like that. And it's an office chat, basically. And weird things are like, I don't even know how to describe or explain this, so I'm not going to even try. But basically, all you need to know is it's a work chat in this office where they're working on one particular project, and one of the characters gets stuck inside of the chat. Like literally, he is now caught inside the chat, and he can't get out. And like, it goes from there. It was weird. It was strange, but it was a good time. So I enjoyed my time reading this, and I gave it, I think, 4.5 stars, because it was just a really weird, fun time. And I recommend it if you enjoy weird stories that read very quickly. So that is all the things I bought in January and February. And it's quite the stack. I did get a lot of things, but I'm excited to read all of them. And some of them I've already read. Like, I am doing really well this year. My goal was to not buy every stinking thing that comes across my vision, because I'm really bad at just buying all the things and then never reading them, because there's always other things I need to read, you know? So I've been trying to be more like intentional with my purchases and only buying things that I either know I'm gonna be getting to because it's for a project, or things that like I'm definitely going to read because it was a favorite author or something like that. You know what I mean? So like I've already read like 4 of these books that I've bought, which isn't a lot, I know, but like it's a start, you know? And like there are several here that I do plan to read in the near future. So like I'm doing well. So that is it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. Let me know down below in the comments, what are some of the books that you purchased in the last 2 months that you're really excited about? And let me know too if you've read anything in this stack I've shown you today that you want me to prioritize, because like there's a lot here that I want to get to. So if there's something that you're like, oh my God, Emily, you need to read that, let me know. Thanks so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I will see you guys next time. Happy reading. Bye.